Okay. Let's see if we can discuss something reasonably. Here's the subject, and I'm sorry I don't have it on my board this evening, to remind you and to remind me what I'm talking about. Little different format. This is my podcast style. Come to you and sit down, cup of coffee, living room graphics. That's my living room, by the way. That's the fireplace that I built. Yes, I did. I built that fire. Yep. If you want one, just let me know. Okay? All right? So anyway, that's my family pictures up on the wall back there. That's my fish that I carved. I got another one up here. You can't see it. Okay? So anyway, welcome to my humble abode. Yes. All right. We're going to talk about dealing with bad people. They're such a pain. They're a pain in the all over. Here's a question. I'm going to talk about the death penalty. Is it right or is it wrong? As a Christian, should you say, I believe in the death penalty, or I don't? We're going to talk about that. So you'll know how I feel about it, okay? How do we heal the wounds of people that was hurt by clergy and bad religious people? How do we deal with bad people, and particularly if those bad people are supposed to be your mentors? I was speaking with someone this evening on the phone. I speak to a few people per day on the phone. And it's part of my job, part of my ministry, is to answer when you reach out to me and reach out to you as well. And I said that and they wasn't familiar with what I'm doing anymore in life, and it had been a while since we had talked. And I told him, I said, I spend my life trying to help people. I've lived for myself long enough. Now this is all God, all the way, all in. And I had a friend that said, you know what he says, I have a friend, he says that he doesn't go to church anymore. He doesn't go to church anymore. I said, let me guess. Let me guess why. He doesn't go to church anymore because some pastor hurt his feelings. Some religious person that wags their finger in your face, is a hypocrite. So he doesn't go to church anymore. And they said, well, it's worse than that, Pastor. This person was hurt by a member of the clergy. Sexual abuse. Despite the fact that this person has become a very good person, a good father, almost in every way, but now he is an atheist. Does not want to believe in God because of a member of the clergy that abused him. So, what am I supposed to tell my friend? Who has an answer for that, huh? Emotionally, I can see how someone would experience that experiences this but no longer believe in God, the emotional aspect of this topic. And then there's the rationality of it, just looking at it in a rational way, in a way where you say, I comprehend the world. Maybe not understand it, but I comprehend the world. You got to be careful with your words. Rationally, the fact that this person seemed to be religious is irrelevant. That they was supposed to be a member of the clergy, was supposed to be religious, but yet abused this person sexually. the fact that he was religious or not is really irrelevant. Sort of. Here's a thought. Because you're going to point to God and you're going to say, why does God allow this? Someone asked me a few years ago that had a handicapped child and says, how does God allow a handicapped child to be hurt by somebody that treats them wrong, abuses them, or even sexually abuses them? How does God allow that to an innocent, handicapped, wheelchair-bound child? And if you think that I had a very easy answer for that, you're wrong. I actually told them, I have to get back with you on that so I can answer you correctly. Just to be honest with you. God doesn't stop everybody from being bad. That's what I think you understand at this point, whether you agree with it or not. He does not stop the world from being bad. Why not? Well, let's talk rationally about it. Okay? Oh, those of you that would not go to church, are you withdrawn from your faith because of some religious person that you realize is a hypocrite? Okay? God doesn't stop bad from being bad, and we're not robots. I want you to think of a world this way. See if this kind of a world would work out, okay? Because you're smart people. And let me just sort of tell you something about what people value in life and what they don't value. People value knowledge, but they do not value wisdom. Remember that. They seek after knowledge, diplomas, and trophies, and degrees, and ordinations. People value knowledge, but they put no value in seeking wisdom. And wisdom is something you must seek. And wisdom is actually the application of knowledge. So now you know. We're not robots. Would you rather, we would rather live with pain and alongside of bad people in a free world, rather than in a totally controlled existence by a big, large creator. Think about it. In order for you to live in a free world, you have to rub elbows in that world, that not in any way perfect world, with people that have the freedom to choose to be bad. So how is it we live in a bad world with bad people? It's because you have elected and you want to live in a free world. The perfect world, by the way, is going to exist one day. But how can there even be a perfect world with these precepts, okay, that I'm explaining to you? How could there ever be a beautiful, free world without bad people in it? Because if people have the freedom to choose right and wrong, some people are going to choose to be bad people. Now, I'm not telling you anything that you don't know already. But we're going to talk about the death penalty, and I want to know how you feel about it. Or you don't have to tell me, but you think about it. How passive should Christians be about our evil world? That's really the question that I'm trying to address today. The perfect world is going to exist one day, and that'll be during the millennial reign, by the way. The millennial reign is going to be that pretty close to perfect society. It really will. If you was hooked up to a machine and it would pump into your body chemicals and send electronic impulses to your brain, and that would always make you happy. Instead of taking a depressant, it would make you happy. Would that be would that be the answer to a perfect world? Because that's what you ask for when you say, how can God allow there to be evil in this world done upon good people? Well, you're asking God to make you a robot, and you'll be happy by way of a machine, perhaps, or a drug. People try that with drugs, of course. I understand that that's what drugs are for, okay? Make you feel good. They try to find their happiness that way. So people that take the rational approach to God and morality, there's something they need to understand about it, okay? Does this friend really believe that the universe, the one that says that I can no longer believe in God because somebody molested me when I was a child? I know that's a serious subject. Somebody molested me or did me wrong when I was a child, and that was a member of the clergy to make it even worse. So, this is how I totally, trust me, sympathetic. Actually furious. There isn't anything that would distress me any more than somebody that would do wrong to an innocent child, or some big bad bully of a husband or a boyfriend that thinks that he can punch on a frail little beautiful wife to make him feel like God and enjoy the fear in her face listening to him. That infuriates me. I wish that I could be what they call the the equalizer. You hurt someone, God, let me take care of it. So, does my friend really believe that the universe created itself, this person that is no longer as faithful in God? This become an atheist? Well, that's not rational. It's not irrational thinking to believe that the universe created itself. And does he really believe that life is pointless? That's not rational either. Because you see, when you've been molested by an adult as a child, particularly a clergyman, those scars are deep. They're deep. See, what we're trying to achieve in life really, before you die, you're trying to live all that you want before you die, is what? I am living for money. I'm living for fame. I'm living for health. I'm living for the death of my enemies. That's good reasons to say this is why I'm here. To make my life fulfilling, one of those things must be. But you see, happiness is the highest goal of every living creature. People want to be happy. People want to be happy. Happiness can also be defined differently. I'm going to throw a curveball in here at you. Every human being, if I ask you, what will it take for you to be happy? What would you do if you won the lottery? Now, if I said you won, $10 million or $5 million or whatever, you could just say anything you wanted. But suppose it was just 500,000. Just. Then you'd have to be a little selective as to what your priorities were, what you would do with it. What would bring you happiness if you had $500,000? Or maybe $100,000? Oh, I would buy me a nice boat. Not buy me a new car. So your happiness would be defined differently than everybody else. So when your world says, I want to be happy, you have to also understand that God has a very difficult task at hand. Make everybody happy. Huh. Try that. So happiness, that's not going to be the definitive word either. Make everybody happy. Unless they can all come to one understanding as to what happiness is. Now God in the gospel tells us that. Let me see if I can move on here a bit so I don't run out of time. Happiness to some people would be that my children call me every day. Happiness to bad people, the happiness has a different definition. A bad person, a serial killer, his happiness is finding another innocent victim to kill. That would make him happy. You see what I mean? Happiness is different for different people. A drug addict is happy when he scores another hit of drugs. So can you see how a society of happiness and tranquility and a world, I got a little thing that comes on my phone every once in a while. Sister Donna, you are on the right page. I do have it on 2 pages, but I think you're on the page with everyone. I think it's my personal page. If you friend me and that's the one. I don't know how to describe it. And oh, by the way, hello, Sister Donna, fellow minister. Whenever I see a fellow minister on here, a pastor, I will always etiquettely like to address you and say thank you for stopping in, Sister Donna. Sister Donna is my friend. Y'all know that already. Yes. Preached a tremendous message the other night in our church. I think that's a turning point of our church, that message that you brought to us, Sister Donna. I think, I know, that was a turning point in our church. It's an earmarked turning point last Sunday. Thank you for being the instrument of that. Happiness can be defined differently by different people. Can you see how a society of happiness and tranquility and a world of utopia is so different to imagine? And it's not rational thinking at all. It is the God that the victim no longer wishes to believe in that is the only rational ideal. I'll explain that. Here's a question to my friend. Here's a question to anybody who no longer can trust and can find their faith, their level of faith in God, the God of Christ, that has been treated wrong by an evildoer. Only if there is here's what I would say to you. Only if there is a God and I'll just spell it. Only if there is a God, will the murderer, the molester, the demon that molested you be punished for that crime. Only if there is a God will he or she be punished. So you may want to believe in God because he is the justice giver. Some people believe they should get the death penalty, and other people believe that they should not get it. Now, I'm going to discuss that with you right now. Let's talk about Christians and the death penalty. Then I'm going to tell you why I'm bringing all this up. Give me a thumbs up if you're still with me. It's a little different format. I'm not trying to preach to you this evening, so it's a little bit awkward for me. Just trying to talk to you about some subjects. Things that Christians would talk about around the campfire, okay? Not a campfire, but, Here's a true story. 2 men broke into the home of Dr. Pettit and his wife and 2 children. This is a true story. They got into his home. He was a wonderful, kind doctor. His hands was for healing. They beat the doctor nearly to death with a baseball bat, beat him senseless, beat him to unconsciousness. They raped his beautiful little wife. Another one sexually assaulted their 11-year-old daughter. And if that wasn't bad enough, the 2 men doused gasoline on the 2 daughters And then they tied the two daughters down to the bedpost. They poured gasoline over them. And then they lit the house on fire. True story. The doctor survived, but his wife and his daughters died. There are two sides of how to handle this amongst people. Some say that the evil men will still have a God-given right to live. And those that are opposed to capital punishment will say nobody can do anything so bad as to that they deserve to die. I pass on Barataria, and every time I pass that store, that Time Saver, by Cousins Boulevard, Cousins Street, off of Barataria. So many years ago, a young Asian girl working the night shift at her family's little store on Barataria. Two thugs walked in, put a gun to her face. She gave them everything they wanted. The little girl's working for her mom and dad's store at night, working the cash register. She's in there by herself, trying to make money to put herself through college. And she begged for her life. And on film, they shot her point blank in her beautiful, beautiful face. You can only imagine the horror of that crime scene. I walked up on a crime scene at one time. I was called, and I ran into a crime scene and lay on the floor beside me in a big puddle of blood. Hate to be so graphic. In a big puddle of blood laid a man that was shot about 3 minutes before I was able to get there. The family's running around frantic, all because the man did not want to give them the money in the cash register. Should these people be killed? Should they, when they're caught, should we take their lives? Is that a Christian thing to do or not? That's what we're discussing right now. So, is killing murderers the same as murdering and committing sin yourself? That's the question. Opponents of capital punishment believe that keeping even devils alive sanctifies the value of human life, but I believe that the opposite is more true. The opposite is true in that I believe it devalues life. Allowing somebody to wreak that type of sinistry and havoc on good people devalues life rather than sanctifies it. Belittling sin is more of a correct observation on the matter of it, actually. Does evil have different levels of sinistry? That's my question. Imagine that the punishment for murder is the same as driving over the speed limit. Would that not belittle murder and therefore cheapen human life? If you killed someone, as what I described, and you blatantly murdered a innocent young woman, and you killed and you raped a doctor's family and set them on fire, would that be belittling the horrendous sin that he just committed by giving him a traffic ticket? Or if somebody blew a red light or went over the speed limit, if you was to give them the death penalty, that would make no sense. Society determines how bad an action is by the punishment that it issues out. So this would be my question. Okay? Does God treat sin the same way? And I'll bring to you Matthew chapter 18, verse 6. My messages are the voice of reason, God included. We talk about all matters, God included. So let's include God's thoughts on these things. Matthew chapter 18, verse 6. But whosoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. So my answer to you would be there are different degrees of punishment for different levels of sinistry and evil. Your loved ones is horribly murdered, and the murderer is being treated with rights, given lawyers, health care, food. He's in a jail cell, and that's if he's not bonded out. Dr. Petit, he thinks, now he survived. This doctor that I'm telling you about, he miraculously survived, and he was asked what should be done to the two men. He said that they should be put to the most horrendous death, and they should be put to flames just as his family was. Do you blame him? Well, it's his family. Do you think that Dr. Petit is immoral? Because that would make the doctor immoral if by that good reasoning, if no matter what anybody does, no one can go to that extent. Actually, by keeping the murderers alive, many others will die because they'll get out of prison eventually, or they may kill people in prison. They are on a mission of disaster because their father is the devil. So why am I making a case of capital punishment as a sermon topic rather than, because there's so many other things that I could speak on. Now, and I'm going to tell you. I will tell you my thoughts on this because I always tell you my thoughts. People know that I am a Republican. That doesn't mean I dislike those that are Democrats. It doesn't mean that I don't preach to Democrats. It doesn't mean that I don't respect Democrats. But I am one of the few people that will get on air and I will tell you that I am a Republican. And I'll tell you why. Now, you show me a Democratic candidate that says, I believe in Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, and I will do everything in my power to enact all of the rules and regulations of that, and guess what? I will flip in a heartbeat. I'm still waiting for our Republican presidents to say that. So what I'm trying to tell you is, I'm going to tell you what I believe. So when I tell you my positions on this, if you haven't assumed already, you may not agree with me. That is all right. Now, if I tell you that you need to find Jesus in your heart and your life, and if you don't have Jesus, you'll go to hell, I'm not going to concede there. I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I'm right, you're wrong. But on this subject right here, we all have our different feelings on it. Okay? We have our different way that God deals with us according to our personality, what we've been through in life. Some people are like, boy, you just bring them to me and let me show you what I'm going to give them. And other people are like, oh, let me see if I can fix them a cup of coffee and give them a pie and maybe I could change them that way. People have different personalities. So I will just go ahead to say ahead of time, who does not agree with me in these things right here, this makes no difference, okay? Makes no difference. I can straddle both sides of the fence on this. But I'm giving you something to think about, and I'm going to tell you why I'm bringing this up. We're living in an America right now that's letting evil people walk all over us. We're letting crime go unpunished, and criminals are not afraid of the judicial system. And in my opinion, I think that if people have if they don't care about prison, it's a club for them, they could care less. Your young child's going to be hurt one day by one of them people. So I do believe in the death penalty. Now, some of you are not going to agree with me on that. Trust me, it's all right. It's all right. It's just, I don't. Okay? But I can also forgive anybody for anything they've done, and I don't care what they have done. I know how wonderful it is to forgive someone that has changed. Don't let me confuse you with my Christian stance and my position as a pastor. Someone can do the most hideous crimes. And I've had jail ministries before in my life, and I have talked to wayward children, kids in my life. I've started Youth Challenge Ministries many years ago. I have preached on the streets of Harlem. I have preached in the streets of the Bronx. And I know what it's like to deal with dastardly evil people that has changed. So, I'm not trying to speak out of both sides of my mouth, but in general, I believe in a death penalty. I believe in a death penalty. Again, I will always tell you how I feel, how I believe, okay? All right? So, that little disclaimer, okay? There's an argument by passive Christians even that to say, well, only God has the right to take human life. So why am I making this an issue? I could be some theological topics. Could be. I should be talking to you perhaps on holiness and sanctification, healing and prayer, the gifts of the Spirit, those kind of things. You might like that kind of a message. But I'm not preaching to you this evening, okay? And I know how to preach. Hey, Sister Donna's on here. Sister Donna, do I know how to preach? Can I preach? I'm asking Sister Donna. She says I can preach. I can preach. You know why, huh? Because I know Sister Donna can preach. So, okay. So, anyway, I'm just being a little funny there for a moment. All right, there was a story. The story in the Bible of the demons of Gadara. Jesus pulls up in a boat. The devils, and he pulls out, and the demons holler out to him, "Don't punish us. Don't punish us before our time. Don't punish us. You're demons. You came against my Father in heaven. You tried to overthrow our kingdom. Some of you even had sex with children of men before of children of the you had sex with women, okay, before the flood. Some of you guys y'all are locked up in the deepest parts of hell right now, where child molesters will go, and those real bad people. And you don't want to be punished. So I'm going to make a statement on that note, discussing it around the campfire here, okay? The devil's justice system is punish the innocent righteous. The devil wants you to go through pain and misery, and he wants to cause pain and ministry and misery and not be punished. That is the devil's way. The devil's justice system is to punish and bring torment to the righteous and let the unrighteous go free. Well, does God believe in the death penalty? Do you think? Let's read something, okay? Exodus chapter 21, verse 12. Whosoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. That's in Exodus 21:12. Exodus 22:19. Whosoever lies with an animal shall be put to death. It goes on and on to say other acts of sin that you should be put to death. Romans chapter 13, verse 1 through 7. Now, there's another side to this that I can preach, which talks about forgiveness and all these things. Okay? Submission to the authorities. Romans chapter 13, verse 1 through 7. Let me read that. He says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there's no authority except from God. and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are a terror to good conduct, or not a terror to good conduct, okay? But to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? You got to give someone something to fear about, or they're going to continue to be bad. Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid. For he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. For because of this you also pay taxes, for the authorities or ministers of God attending this very thing. Pay to all who is owed to them, taxes to whom taxes is owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. Respect and honor are very big on God's character list. I got just a few more minutes, and so I'll be winding up this little talk, okay? How should a Christian view the death penalty? We have to we got to remember that God has instituted capital punishment in his word. He has. I just read it to you, that in his word that there are people that was put to death for what they done. Well, suppose they're forgiven. I will say this, because this is what needs to be said so that I don't confuse you and think I'm a mean pastor. A person that has changed, is a person that's forgiven. There are consequences for your evil. You can't just do evil and say, well, I'll ask for forgiveness, because you're not a changed person. You just don't want the punishment. Look at David, King David. He was an adulterer and he was a murderer. He had a child that was born. And because of his sin, that innocent child died shortly after birth. David went his whole life. He was forgiven by God. But there was a curse there was a judgment put upon him, which was he would run for the rest of his life from his own son that would try to kill him. And what I read to you in the scriptures is when the government enacts a death penalty, when the government enacts consequences for sins created, it's abided by. Therefore, it'd be presumptuous of us to think that we could institute a higher standard. God has the highest standard of all beings. He's perfect. This standard applies not only to us, but to him as well. Therefore, he loves God loves at an infinite degree. And he also has mercy to an infinite degree, but he also sees that he has wrath to an infinite degree as well. And it is all maintained in a perfect balance. So, I give you an illustration, and I won't go into all of that right now, because my time's up. I won't go into all of that. But the devil's ideology of justice is to do wrong to righteousness and watch the righteous in their torment of what the perpetrator, of what the evil man has done to them. Only a friend can betray you. The true test of my friendship is how you feel about me after we disagree. I don't know who is my true friend until we have a disagreement. Then I'll find out for sure. I've had friends that I've known for many, many, many years. And one disagreement, and we couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So were they my friend? And if they were, why? Because of a season, because of a time frame, because we both did the same thing. There's a rule in life that unless you have been tested, you can't be proven. I give an illustration of the wolf and the rabbit. Let me explain what humility is. Everyone, here's what humility is. To be humble is to be a monster, but don't act like one. Jesus, when he hung upon a cross, could have pulled in legions of angels to destroy everybody. He could have said, I'm going to show you who's the King of Kings. I'm going to show you. But he was humble. When Peter cut off the man's ear, Jesus put it back on. He was humble. Meekness is not to be a rabbit and food for the wolf because you cannot defend yourself. Meekness is the ability to be a monster, but you don't show it. A man that mouths off and clenches his fists and bows up and takes his shirt off, that's a demonstration. That is someone trying to bark loud and puff up like a puff fish, or be like a cat that tries to make himself look bigger by fluffing his hair up, because he doubts his ability to be able to win the fight. He's trying to scare you. But that man that stands there and says nothing and lets you ramble on is the guy that's a third-degree black belt and knows good and well he can handle his business. He is meek, but he is a monster. And the word monster I'm not defining as a dragon or an ugly person, but I'm talking about the ability to totally destroy you if he wanted to. Our world today has the mindset of the devil. Those demons of Gadara that said, do not punish me. Our society today does not want to punish. And I'll tell you why. Not because they're loving and because they're kind. They do not want to punish because the longer that a criminal is out on the street or in the system of the judicial system, they are making money. And I will close with this. I just wanted to talk to you tonight, and I would like you to let me know how these things come across to you, okay? That this style of my Wednesday night. I'm open to suggestions, okay? So, I really did preach to you, and I didn't preach to you, I just talked to you, which is what I wanted to do. I want to be able to relate to everybody with things that bother them and they have to talk about around a campfire. Our world has changed, and it's going to change even more. When I say, and I've said it, that the Muslim faith and Christianity cannot live side by side, I know what I'm talking about, because I know the two religions. I received some very horrible video of a Christian being beaten to death in the streets of Pakistan for being a Christian. Beat him. Burned his house down, and his family had to run for their lives because they were Christians. So when Pastor C tells you that Christians and Muslims, true to their faith Muslims, can no longer live together because their agenda is different, I'm telling Christians that your mission statement in life is not to let the evil man live amongst you and make your laws and make your rules. And when an evil man walks the street and ravages your beautiful young daughter and takes her life away, me personally, I believe in the death penalty. Now, many preachers wouldn't tell you that because you're going to get some comeback on that, but that's all right. This is not for you to agree with me tonight. It's just for me to tell you how I feel. If somebody did the most hideous sin, the worst sin in the world, whatever that might be, and they came to me and said, I am telling you, and there's tears in their eyes, and they said that I am sorry beyond any sorrow, I would tell you that I believe in my heart that I would hug their neck and forgive them. And they could eat a plate of food in my house. They could. Because that is what God does to you as a Christian. But Pastor, I thought you just now said you believe in the death penalty. Yes, I do. If in general people are not put away behind bars forever or the death penalty, in general, the evil man will no longer be fearful of his ways. And even though I forgive him, if the municipality has made that a consequence of that sin, it is to be honored, and it is not non-Christian. When Joshua showed up on the scene, he had about 30 towns, about 30 establishments to conquer. They went in with drawn swords and they killed everybody in the camp. They killed everybody. There's a difference between murder and killing. The commandment says, thou shalt not kill, but it properly should say, thou shalt not murder. That means to be jealous of, hate somebody personally for being, whatever reason you would plot against and want to kill someone for your self-gain or your evil. It doesn't follow the ruling of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, which kept the peace way back in the days of Hannibal or Hammurabi. But anyway, that's my thoughts tonight. So now you know how I feel. Now you know how I feel, okay? So I come to you tonight. This is Charles Miller. I come to you with a voice of reason, God included in every conversation. And my most important mission statement in life is to get people to heaven. I'm not preaching and I'm not speaking a word of unforgiveness, but I am speaking and preaching a word of consequences for your actions. So, once again, I always say this no matter what I say. Tell Jesus that you love him and make a friend today, okay? All right? Bye.